Hi, I'm Edwin Balloway with Residential Agent Inc., and I run the website midriseliving.com. Let's say you've gotten a few letters from your homeowners association, and the property management company has been sending out an intent to file a lawsuit to the builder of your condominium building. So what does this mean to you? The worst case scenario is cash only, no loans. So what that would do is, if you can imagine, it would, if this was the entire buyer pool out there, it would shrink that buyer pool down to less than 5% of the buyers that are out there that have the cash. And obviously when that happens, it usually brings your price down into investor type of territory, and that's something you definitely don't want. There are situations where you can lend in condos that are under litigation. Specifically we're talking about when the builder is being sued within that 10-year warranty period for construction defects. Let's talk about some of the surrounding buildings near the Anaheim and the Irvine area where litigation has affected them. Let's look at what happened. First, let's look at the building called Blue in Long Beach. So on your screen, you'll see the sales that have happened within the 2-year time span from the time it was disclosed and when the litigation was finally over and settled. So you would not know which sales on this sheet had actually happened with the litigation, because there's pretty much not much difference in price, not much difference in days in the market. Now let's look at a community in the city of Anaheim. Again, that construction defects, builder being sued within that 10-year warranty period. And let's look at what's happened. You can see there's a lot of sales on your screen right now. And again, you can't really tell when the litigation happened. So there might have been a few more days on the market. That example that we looked at in Blue, the days on the market were a lot longer only because of some of these properties fell out of escrow multiple times. And it finally took a learning curve for the listing agent and to find out that only special types of lenders could do this. Now, as a former engineer, you always want the biggest sample sizes possible. That way you could feel more comfortable on your outcome. So there's no better example than the Aqua Towers in the city of Long Beach. And you can see from this list over here, there are a lot of sales that happened during the time that this condo was under litigation. And just like the other two examples, you really can't tell where the litigation happened in here because of it's sandwiched on both sides where the litigation was not being disclosed, and then you had the litigation formally filed, and then again you wouldn't be able to tell. So what it comes down to is specialty lending that needs to happen in these buildings, especially on these newer built condo buildings or townhome buildings. And this is what Tommy Evans is here to help me out with. Is I have a couple of places that I farm to in the Irvine area. One of them is called Avenue 1, the other one in Anaheim. It's called the Domain, right across the street from the packing house. And condo litigation happens to be a big challenge in any market. So Tommy Evans is here. He happens to be a ex Pac-12. It was actually Pac-10 athlete back then. Thanks for being on here, Tommy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Edwin. Yeah, it's great to see you, and excited to help share my expertise in this topic for you.
Great. So Tommy's definitely not just your run-of-the-mill lender. I happen to be researching condo associations that had litigation lately, and there's a few buildings that I'll just name out there. There's Blue in Long Beach, that's in downtown Long Beach. There's a Stadium Lofts in Anaheim that was under litigation back in June 2015, and it was finally settled in July 2016. Then there's the Marquee Towers right off of Jamboree and the 405. It's those two towers. When I show property in there, I have to actually have to sign a letter of non-disclosure because it's often a celebrity or some big shot. So that one was under litigation right around June 2012 to June 2013. Then there was Glen Oaks, which is just a townhome community in Anaheim. That litigation happened right around May 2018. And then Aqua Towers I happened to see a list of preferred lenders. Tommy Evans happened to be one of them. Aqua Towers was under litigation right around April 2017. So I wanted to dive right into some questions over here with Tommy Evans. Is now there's different types of lending, and then there's, without getting too complicated, there's something called GSE lending, which makes up the majority of loans out there. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. What situations, Tommy, does Fannie and Freddie not lend when there's litigation?
Yeah, so the biggest issue that you're going to run into is the structural soundness. And so anything that is structural in nature, safety hazards, there's something going on with the roof where they have concerns over the integrity of it. That is just the biggest issue that you're going to run into on the litigation side, is that as soon as it happens where there's this litigation filed and it has anything to do with structural, it's a hard stop for any GSE loan. And so that's the main thing that you really got to watch out for. Now, there are certain litigations that you can kind of work around. There's situations where you might have an employee that, say one time I ran into a situation where there was a security officer that was, suing the HOA. These can be worked around because you actually have an insurance policy. The biggest thing that is the unknown when it's structural is how much is it going to cost to redo this, and that's the unknown portion of this, is that there's costs involved, and how much does that cost? Who's going to foot that bill? And so that's the main thing that we really got to make sure that we get that litigation solved. Otherwise, you're going to have to go with one investor that will allow for these types of situations. Okay, so what? Just to summarize, what I'm hearing is that there's different kinds of lawsuits. You could have the HOA on the plaintiff side. You could have the HOA on the defendant side, where the HOA is actually getting sued. It's often for a newer building. When I say newer, within the first 10 years, they get advised by attorneys to go sue the builder anytime any kind of construction defects show up. And then that's what Tommy's talking about right there. And then when that situation shows up, correct me if I'm wrong, Tommy, like 99% of lenders can't lend on that type of situation, that type of litigation, correct? Yeah, absolutely. And anybody that tries to tell you differently that isn't myself or one of those very select few people that are on that list that you have, they can't do it. And so it is I know of one investor that can actually handle these. And so what happens with these is they're not insurable loans. So you can't sell it off to Fannie, Freddie and have it backed by them. So what they end up doing is they fund these loans, they sit there, they service them until the litigation is finalized. And then at that point, they can come back and offload them off of their books. But during that time frame, they're taking the risk that this litigation is going to end and that it's not going to be an issue. And so with that, obviously, you're going to entail a little bit of cost on that end. Okay. And then just put a little more preface around this conversation. There's not only the different types of litigation out there, but there's also the different stages of it, correct? So you can be in the beginning stage, and then that's one where there's just an intent to file. That's where it's just a disclosure, and the property management company of the HOA just gives that disclosure out there. And then most of the people, like even if you could walk into a Bank of America, they could still lend on that one. And then there's a situation where it gets formally filed with the courts. And then if it's structural defects, this is what Tommy's talking about. And then eventually, a lot of these cases, they end up just getting settled. So Stadium Lofts ended up getting, like, I forget what it was, like $1.3 million from their settlement from Nexus. And then anybody could loan after it was settled. So I wanted to know how much down is needed for these types of loans because you're a specialty lender, obviously. Yeah, so the minimum down payment for a primary residence is going to be 10%. If it's a second home or an investment property, it's 25%. 25%. Okay. And then
For us as real estate agents, my old mentor used to say that you always want to widen that buyer pool as much as possible. And just keep in mind that if some of that pool includes the people who could only do FHA financing and VA, which allows less 3.5% down or less. So then you eliminate those, you start eliminating 5%. So then what ends up happening is that you end up shrinking the buyer pool, and then you shrink it further with your specialized type of lending. But then I'll talk about in my blog on midriseliving.com, because of the bigger question is what ends up happening with price. So then I do have some good news for some sellers that are thinking about selling and then are regulated to just this specialized lending. And I wanted to talk about what's the process like. So let's say a buyer goes out with their agent, and let's say I'm the listing agent, and then litigation gets disclosed, and it's that worst case scenario that we talked about. So what's the process for a buyer?
Yeah, so everything is the same exact process. The main the main criteria is that one, they're going to meet the minimum guidelines to qualify, right? So you got to have the down payment, you got to have a minimum of a 680 credit score, and then the process itself, it's just elongated. So it does take a little bit longer to get these done. And so, right now, traditional loans, we're able to close in, 15 to 20 days. This is going to take 45 days. So you just need to be prepared that it's going to take longer. The sellers are going to be, educated by yourself, and so that they understand that this process isn't, this isn't going to be done in 15, 20 days. Like, this is a 45-day process. And so, but it's just like getting a normal loan. So you apply, you submit it to underwriting. They're going to review it. Now, the one thing that is very different is that we can't actually lock in your rate until we have the appraisal back and the initial loan approval. So that is the one step that is a little bit different, that kind of differentiates from a normal transaction, is that you just can't lock it until you're like 2-3 weeks into the process typically.
Okay. And then we didn't script this one, but then I know you know the answer right off the top of your head. So if someone doesn't want to sell, but they want to refinance their loan, and it's under that worst case scenario with litigation, can you do a refi?
You can, yeah, and the same loan to values and everything apply. Unfortunately, if you missed the boat on refinancing over the last 12 months, and you're now looking to refinance, it definitely comes with a cost. And so the fees are a little bit higher, the rates are a little bit higher, and so, but the good news is it can get done. So if you're sitting there with a 4.5% interest rate, and you've been told no over the last year because it's in litigation, it's still possible to get it done. And so I would say, if anything over like 4% interest rate, if you're living in one of these communities, it's worth exploring and having a conversation to see if the numbers work. I'm a numbers guy, and so for me, I like to see a rate drop of at least 0.5% with no cost is ideal. So if we can kind of put you into that situation, and then everybody's got unique wants and needs. So it might be a situation where you're retiring and you want to have a fixed income and you need that fixed payment at a certain level. So maybe we can get you to that threshold that you're looking for. So happy to run the numbers and take a look to see if it makes sense for you.
Okay, great. And thanks again, Tommy Evans, for joining me over here at midriseliving.com. I'm going to complete this blog on the challenges of sellers today. And then lastly, Tommy, there's some people who are watching that are thinking about making an offer or refining in a house or a condo that doesn't have litigation. So go ahead and throw in your plug. What sets you apart from other lenders?
Yeah, so as an independent mortgage broker, we're able to shop around to help you find the absolute best terms. And so I'm able to plug in your situation and hit a button, and instantly I'm getting back 90 different pricing scenarios that allows me to find the lowest price with the lowest fees, but we're also able to close faster than anybody out there. And so, you know, give me a call even if you've got a loan in process. Happy to take a look at it and see if it makes sense to go with us. Or, you know, I'm first one to tell you if you're in great hands. I'll let you know that too.